Hi there, welcome back to the channel. So today I thought I'd talk about my second time ever running a full marathon, which was the New York City Marathon. But first I wanted to kind of touch on the fact that I'm still editing the Lake Placid one as I'm recording this. Actually, I haven't edited it yet. I kind of rambled to the point where it was about 42 minutes long, and I realized that that's a little long to be talking about one marathon. I know I talked about stuff leading up to the marathon, but I kind of decided I'm going to go through and chop some things up, try to shorten it because it's so long. But I've had some stuff going on lately, these last couple weeks, that have not really been conducive to me really wanting to do much. So that's why that was a little late. I'm going to start editing that tomorrow. But anyway, with that out of the way, New York City Marathon. The only reason I ended up doing the New York City Marathon was the school where I work at, they have a program for the kids that used to be called Mighty Milers. It's always been run by the New York Roadrunners, but it's kind of changed its name over the years, I guess, and it ended up being the Rising New York Roadrunners. And the teacher that was running it knew that I was a runner, so she came to me October 2018, I think it was, saying that the Roadrunners were going to give her so many entries into several of their races that they sponsor. So she gave me the email, and I looked it over, and there were a few that were half marathons in New York City. At that point, I'd already done a New York City half marathon, and I didn't really have any interest in the ones that they were offering. The only thing was the New York City Marathon, because it's the New York City Marathon. And like I said in the Lake Placid video, by that point, I decided I'd only do the 6 World Majors and the Disney World Marathon, and then I'd be done with marathons. Simply because they're the big 6 of the running world. They're the ones that everyone strives to do. They're a big deal. And then Walt Disney World, because we go there a few times a year, and they do the Dopey Challenge, and I just want to be a complete fool and do 4 races over the course of 4 days, totaling nearly 50 miles. Well, that's beside the point. So she gave me the opportunity. I looked at the email, and I was like, she said, get back to me if you're interested in any of this. And I was like, well, it's the New York City Marathon. You're giving me an opportunity to do one of the very few fulls that I have any interest in ever doing. And it's just an easy entry in. It's not, you're not having to qualify. You're not having to run another marathon and say, here's my time, judge me. It's just, here's an entry in, you pay the fee, and you're done. So I was like, this guarantees me in, I'll do it. So, I ended up trying to train for it at that point I had started working on, well, when I started training, I'd started working on my personal trainer certification. So I was learning things through that. I'd read some more books about running, like the ones that I mentioned in my book video. And so I thought I had a pretty good understanding of training, and I'd been, you know, at that point I was running pretty much every single day of the week except Sundays, most weeks, totaling by the end of the week I'd have probably 40 plus, close to 50 or 60 some weeks, miles of running. So I thought I was in really good shape. I'd made a few hiccups along the way. I decided to do a spring streak in April, ran every single day of April, or moved every single day of April, and ended up really wearing myself down. So May I kind of took some time and took more time, did a lot more days off, rest days, and June came along and I was like, okay, I'm going for it. By that point I tested out a new run, seeing how much distance I could cover going a certain way, adding it on to my normal runs, and then just adding mileage, because from my research, from the things I'd read, all that was pretty much just make Saturday your long run day, and every Saturday, this was my mentality. This is not necessarily the way you should do it, but each Saturday add another mile to the run. Sometimes it didn't quite work out to a mile. Sometimes it was 2 miles or 3, because I'd go a new way and end up adding a lot more miles. The point was, I went from doing like 13 miles to doing 15 miles, and at the end of June, school was out, so I decided to start really thinking, okay, I'm going to do 20 plus mile runs now, getting my body ready for New York City. And I made the mistake of running I think I ran a 20 mile, and I tried to do at least 15, I think. I'm not entirely sure now what my plan was, but in any event, I got so far into the run that I ended up giving myself tendonitis in the top of my foot, my right foot. And that's not a good feeling. I was going up a hill at the time, and like, why does it hurt to move my foot? It took all I could to walk back down the hill. I was halfway up the hill, had to turn around, walk back down, and then walk 2 miles back home with my foot like, no, what were you thinking? You did this because there was a graduation party for a friend's daughter. She graduated high school, so we went, and it kind of interfered with my training, so I thought, oh, I'll just do it this way, and ended up putting 2 long runs way too close together. That was the problem. So then I was nursing the foot for quite a bit of the summer, using ice. That's how I ended up getting the Spara, the marble that you put in the freezer to help with plantar fasciitis and tendonitis in your foot. So I learned there not to edit your training too much, because you could end up injuring yourself pretty good. So came to be November, well, end of October, because New York City was the first Sunday of November 2019. Halloween was, I think, a Thursday. So we were going to take the train after school, my family and I. down to New York City from Utica. And a really bad rainstorm hit Halloween night. The next day, school ended up being closed, so we were like, oh, now we get to just kind of hang out for hours until 4 o'clock to catch the train. Utica ended up having to shut down their train station because of trees on the track, power lines on the track from the aforementioned storm. So we had to drive down to Albany, but we ended up getting on an earlier train to New York City. Got there that night, had dinner, and went to bed because we got in, late enough that not really much to do at that point. So, got up the next morning, went down to the fitness expo. And I'm kind of using this as a explanation of my experience while also giving you advice for New York City. So, first thing first, the expo is gigantic. Expect to spend at least probably 2 hours there. We got there as quick as we could. Traffic was awful because way too many things were going on that weekend. And so we got to the expo. I got my bib, walked around, got some merchandise that they were selling, and then made our way around the tables to see what other people were talking about. Found tables for other races around the country, races around the world. I grabbed a few booklets, marathon tours. I think Run Russia, or so, that's probably not what they're called, but it was running in Russia kind of thing, Moscow and all that. And Run Czech, running the Czech Republic, a few other things, just because down the road I want to run half marathons in other countries. So Czech Republic and Russia, from things I've seen in film and online, look like beautiful places to visit, certain cities. But anyway, saw some guest speakers, and ended up going out to have lunch, and then hung out at the hotel, and my aunt and uncle had come down from Albany to watch me as well, so we met up with them for dinner, and then I went to bed, set my alarm for like 3:30 in the morning, I think. So, the thing with race morning, whatever you do, it's gonna be a bear to get to the race village. I say that because you have options. If you're staying in the city proper, you can stay at any hotel and make your way to the New York Public Library and catch a shuttle to Staten Island. That's what I did. Another option, if you're staying like nearby in New Jersey or in other areas, you can get the ferry to Staten Island. And then, of course, you have the option of finding your own way there, which I, of course, didn't do. I honestly would not recommend doing that. Try, if you can, to get a shuttle or get a ferry. Keep in mind, this is the largest marathon in the world. There's like 50,000 people come to run this. So, I picked the option because they email you a few months in advance to ask you, what options do you want? For instance, do you want poncho at the end, or do you want a bag check, or, well, it's not either or. Both instances, you get a poncho. Poncho's pretty cool, but you either only get the poncho or you do the bag check with the poncho. Do the bag check if you're bringing stuff to Staten Island with you. I never bring anything with me to races. When I get ready for a race, I'm in the hotel room. I chow down on a banana. I chow down on a protein bar. I drink my pre-race drink, which of course is then in my system for X hours before I start the race. I do a bunch of stretches before I leave the hotel room. I do more stretches once once I'm within a certain window of when I'm going to start, but I always make sure to do plenty of stretching at the hotel room to start. Anyway, so they give you the option of the shuttle or the ferry, or you're on your own. And keep in mind, the shuttles are specific times. So, I can't right now off the top of my head remember the timing, but I know it was really early in the morning, and the last shuttle left. I think they say that the last shuttle leaves like 2 hours before the race starts or something. They want everyone there before, like, an hour or half an hour at least before race starts. And the race starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, also, while I'm thinking of it, corrals. You won't know what corral you're in, I think, until maybe they might say in an email before. I think they tell you in an email before you get your bib, but it's still after you've already signed up for your time for the shuttle. So I picked the earliest time for the shuttle because I don't know what corral I'm in. I don't know if I'm leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning or at noon. Because, like I said, there's 50,000 people run this. They have you in 3 separate villages. Each village has, I want to say, it's like from A to H. So that's, what, like 8 corrals, 8 or 10 corrals. And they have you go, they stagger it, so you may be Blue Corral B, but you might be Wave 3. What's Wave 3? What's all this mean? So, you get to the Staten Island, you get off the shuttle, and you walk around, you follow signs saying, go blue, go orange, go green. If you're blue, you go that way, etc. And then you get there, and then you wait, and then, because if you're wave 1, they're going to say over the loudspeaker, wave 1, get to your corrals. And then they, like, keep repeating that until, like, you're within so many minutes. And then they say, last call for wave 1, get to your corral. So, those people in wave 1 leave the start line at around 8 o'clock. If you're in wave 2, you're leaving about an hour and 15 minutes after that. An hour and 15 minutes? Yes, an hour and 15 minutes. Because you've got 3 villages, each with, like I said, 8 to 10 corrals. Think of the 1,000 people thousands of people in each of those corrals. So they have to clear out the course. The last person crosses the start line, and then, okay, wave 2, get to your corrals. So there's a lot of waves, there's a lot of corrals, there's 3 villages. You need to be utterly aware of your surroundings, because they're not, like, if you get to your corral, like if you're wave 2, you can get in wave 3 if you want. But make sure you're in that wave. Make sure you get in where you need to be. The same with the corrals. You can, be in, your bib can say like corral A, but you can get an H if you want. It's just whatever is most feasible for you. The only thing they'll be upset with is if you try to get ahead. They don't want you to get ahead. They want, if anything, go further back. So go in a later wave, go in a later corral. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the color of your bib. If you're blue, you need to be in the blue village. If you're green, green village, etc. They're not going to be happy with you if you're in, because they're trying to account for all those thousands of people, and they have so-and-so in corral A of village, blue of wave 2. They need to know that you are in that village at least. So anyway, I digress. So that morning, I came down from my hotel room. I'm just going to put this out there, because if you're like me, I don't sleep well before races. So I went to bed. I may have tried to go to sleep at like 9 o'clock at night, but I probably didn't actually fall asleep until like 11 or later. And then I woke up at like 2 or 3:30 in the morning, so that I was sure to get my banana, get my bar, get my drink, get dressed, get stretched, and get down to where I needed to be to get on the shuttle. So I just want you to keep this in mind when you go down. They have barricades set up, basically like a chute, like you would any other race, leading to where the shuttles are. I didn't know that. I put in, in my GPS, I put in New York Public Library so I could walk there. So I was walking, and it said to turn a certain way, and I had a cop say, where are you going? I go, I'm trying to get to the public library. Oh, you gotta go back that way. This way's blocked off. Okay, thank you. Turn around. Start heading in another direction. And I get to a point, I see the barricades, but again, I've had maybe 5 hours of sleep. It's, by this point, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm anxious to get where I'm supposed to be so that I can get on the shuttle on time, get to Staten Island at an early enough time that I can do whatever I need to do there. And so I see the barricades and totally disregard what they are, until someone yells to me from the Porta-Johns, are you trying to get to the public library? I go, yeah. You're trying to get to the shuttles? Yeah. You need to go through the barricades. Oh, okay. I don't know why the first person I saw didn't tell me that. She goes, yeah, I don't know why they're not. Apparently I wasn't the first one, because she said, I don't know why they're not telling people either. So, if you see barricades, get between them. Follow them. And then as you get close to the shuttle area, it doesn't matter what time. It says in the thing, do not show up early, or do not show up at a time that, try to be mindful of your timing so that you're not taking someone else's seat. etc., etc. They didn't keep track of who was supposed to be on and who was not supposed to be on, as far as I knew. I couldn't tell. And as it was, I got on the shuttle, like half an hour before I was supposed to. But anyway, as you're walking through to the library, to the shuttles, you will be wanting to take pictures of the library. You are going to get yelled at for it. I'm telling you that right now. Keep your phone somewhere else. Don't bother. They're just going to keep yelling, put it down, keep moving, put it down, keep moving, because so many people were stopping and taking the picture. I mean, you do you. I'm just putting it out there that that's going to happen to you. Anyway, so like I said, got on the bus like half an hour before we were supposed to leave, and they tell you that it's going to be like an hour-long ride. And I was sitting next to a gentleman who ended up sleeping the whole time, the whole ride. And we got to Staten Island, because keep in mind, they tell you this more for later in the day, because more people are going to be awake, more people are going to be trying to get down to Staten Island. So traffic's going to be harder later on in the day, later on in the morning. We got there in less than half an hour, I want to say. It was still pitch dark. I ended up walking with the guy that I was sitting next to on the bus. We chatted a little bit about, races we'd done, this and that. And interestingly, we were both in the same village. Different waves, but in the same village. So we had a nice chat and got to the village. They have bagels, they have bananas, Dunkin' Donuts is there, you can get tea, you can get coffee, because I was freezing to death. I was shivering, because I had shorts on, because I was going to be running for 26 miles, for likely 4 hours, so I didn't wear long pants, because I don't typically wear long pants when I'm going to be running like that, when it's going to be like 60 degrees when I'm running. It was only like 40 something with a wind on Staten Island that morning. Keep in mind, of course, depending on, like, if you talk to other marathoners, other people that have done New York City, they'll tell you that the weather varies. I happened to be there on a day that it was only like 40 degrees with a strong wind. Others have had it where it's like a hot summer day. So, and others still have had it where it's like raining or snowing or some other ridiculous thing. So, just try to look at what the weather is calling for that morning. Dress appropriately. And like a lot of people say, peel off the stuff as you go along. If you're wearing too much, tie it around your waist or throw it off to the side. They end up gathering the stuff to give to charity after. But I never do anything like that. I like keeping my stuff. I'm kind of a hoarder, so I'm exaggerating, but I don't really like giving up stuff very easily, so I'm not going to wear a jacket and then get too warm and just toss it to the side, or wear a hat and toss it to the side. I ended up, because they hand out special Dunkin' Donuts hats, which are really cool. I have mine. I wore it a lot during the winter. They handed it to me at like 6 o'clock in the morning in the village. By the time I was done, not even by the time I was done, probably halfway through the race, I was like, I don't need this hat anymore. It's killing me, but I am not throwing this off because I don't want to lose it. I like it, and I have nowhere else to put it, so it's staying on my head. That's me. You do whatever you want to do. But, so, I sat there for a while. The problem was I got cold, So then I was kind of shivering and then having to do extra stretching and like getting out in the sun on the blacktop doing my stretches because everything got so cold. So try to keep all that stuff in mind. And then, like, I wasn't planning on getting a cup of tea. I got a cup of tea because I was cold and I needed something warm on my hands because I didn't have gloves. I don't think I had gloves. No, because I had nowhere to put my gloves once I wanted to take them off, and I have nice running gloves, so I didn't want to. So, I got there, like I said, probably around 5 or so, maybe 6. Like I said, I can't really remember when I was supposed to leave on the shuttle. All I remember was I was about half an hour early, and I was planning on being on the bus for like an hour or an hour and a half, and then ended up at the village for an extra hour, hour and a half. And then my corral didn't go until like, I think 10:45. I was the third wave of 4, I think. I might have misspoken before. I think there's 4 waves. There's a lot of waves. I'll just put it that way. There's 3 villages, a lot of waves, a lot of corrals. Because you got 50,000 people to contend with. So, and I'll get this out of the way too. There's the myth going around that if you go under, because when you're running across Staten Island Bridge, you've got the 2 lanes and then you've got people running underneath. And you want to be on top because if you run underneath, you're going to have people peeing on you. Couple things. One, the road isn't that porous that could happen. 2, if people were just peeing, they'd probably be disqualified. One of the things was, and that number 3, before I get to that. Number 3, you don't have a choice. Whatever village you're in is whatever color your bib is whatever your course you're following. Because there are so many people, you don't all end up coalescing until about 8 miles, 10 miles in. So you've got, like, I was, I think, blue, and then there was orange and green. So I think, say, blue and green are on the 2 lanes on top of the bridge, and then orange is underneath. You don't have a choice. And the thing is, if you are blue and you cross over into the other lane, you are disqualified. They will tell you your time doesn't count. And there's a possibility that you may not be allowed to run that race again. I'm not sure of. I know the bib bandits and all that, those people they end up banning. But people hopping lanes, I don't know, but I wouldn't chance it. And so, when I got called to my corral, you end up, that day I put like 36 miles on. Because I ran 26.2, but I was walking all the way around Staten Island. I walked probably a mile from my corral to the start line, and then I walked like a mile after the finish line, through the chute, around, and then to wherever my family were. I can already tell that this is going to be another long thing, so whatever. Anyway, so I'm going to warn everyone now. I made a lot of mistakes on that marathon. Why? 1, you're being cheered on by millions of people. I've never had that many people. Once you cross Staten Island, it's just wall-to-wall people pretty much, except on some of the bridges. Like, I think it was Queensboro Bridge, where you're kind of inside. That didn't have anyone there, but otherwise you are pretty much just the whole way. People recommend, putting your name somewhere on your clothing so that they can yell out your name. I didn't know that when I went in. I didn't think about it because I don't really worry about it that much. I've got my music going. And that's the other thing. They say, oh, don't listen to your music. You're going to want to listen to the crowds. If you're doing like I do and using what you should, which are like bone conduction headphones, you won't hear anything but the screaming of the people on the sides of the road. The only way I could hear anything is if I went. So, there's that. And I do that every now and then just because I need my music. Even though, like, cheering crowds helps a lot, I need my music to encourage me sometimes. I've got very kind of inspirational or very powerful sounding songs, so, and I've gotten used to running with them, so they help me. Another thing, and I mention that because the crowd carries you. When I say that, I mean, as you're hearing all these people screaming and yelling, you're going, oh, I feel so amazing. I feel awesome. Everything's great. Everything's awesome. I'm going to do awesome. Those are all great thoughts to have. What's not great to do is get to 13 miles and think, well, maybe I'll walk for a few seconds. Nah, I'm feeling good because I'm used to half marathons. This is my thing. I reached the half marathon point. I'm awesome. Keep going. Don't do that. Especially New York City. Because the half marathon point happens to be just a little ways before Queensboro Bridge, which I've dubbed the bane of my existence for that race. Why? The bridges, you have to kind of go uphill. Bridges are kind of curved up. So, like, I kept looking at it like, oh, it's flatter than Lake Placid. This'll be so easy. I got that in my head. And I ignored everything else. I was like, I've done my 20 miles. I've trained on hills. I did Lake Placid. Lake Placid was wicked hilly. I had so much up and down there. So much elevation gain. New York City, you may not have that much elevation gain because you are low enough and pretty much the bridges are your elevation gain. There are a few other spots where you go up hills, but for the most part, the bridges are where you're getting your elevation gain. And that makes it very deceiving. Like, you can look at the chart for the elevation gain like, that's what I did. You want to know my time for Lake Placid? 4 hours, 43 minutes. Want to know how much time I gained in New York City? About 2 minutes. And I trained much better for New York City than I did for Lake Placid. But the crowd gets in your head. The second you step off Staten Island, you are in Brooklyn, you have people screaming and yelling. You are feeling emotional from all the thousands and millions of people you're seeing. One of the first people I saw stepping off of Staten Island was a 70 or 80-year-old man out there in his wheelchair with his oxygen, as strongly as he could say to every single person crossing that bridge, welcome to Brooklyn. Welcome to Brooklyn. every single soul that crossed that bridge, welcome to Brooklyn. That was an incredibly moving moment for me. I felt insanely emotional hearing that from this man who I saw as, having to take everything he had to get out the front door to get out there and do that and be the first person to greet these people. Some of which from all over the world, let alone all over the country, all over the world. And he felt it was his duty to be out there saying, welcome to Brooklyn to every person that crossed that bridge. And you get that everywhere in New York City. Every borough, they welcome you. You hear thousands of people yelling, welcome to Queens, welcome to the Bronx. And it's an incredibly moving thing. But you need to rein it in. Why? If you are someone going for specific time, like if I want to run Boston outside of doing charities, I would need to run a sub 3 hour race, a sub 3 hour full marathon. Those not familiar with that lingo, I'd have to run 26.2 miles in under 3 hours. That is not happening unless I do things right. And I didn't do things right in New York City. I let the crowd carry me. I was running like sub 8-minute miles for the first few miles. I've done that for half marathons. I was running a half marathon, but it was 26.2 miles. That is a problem. That's why I say you need to look at, if you are someone who runs a variety of distances, you need to look at what it is that you're running. You need to look at the elevation. You need to look at the distance. You need to look at all the factors that can play into that race. Is it a big race? Is it a small race? If it's a big race, you need to worry about the crowd carrying you, which can be good and bad, as I just stated. If it's a small race, you need to look at the fact that you're not going to have people lining the road everywhere. So you're going to need some other means of encouraging yourself along, music or something. So anyway, I reached the half marathon point, like I said, right before Queensboro Bridge. I think actually Queensboro Bridge is about 15 miles because I think I was like, I'm good. Because after the 13-mile marker, I was like, okay, 14, should I? No, I'm still feeling good. 15, and that's where you hit Queensboro. I was like, I started up and I hit a point where I was like, nope, I gotta walk. I walked for a while. Because up to that point, I'd been running pretty much constantly, except maybe at water stations, which up to that point are very few and far between. The majority of your water stations are later in the race. The first few miles, there aren't really that many water stations. Why? Because they're doing it in November, and it's New York City, so it's relatively cool. So they're not really worried about hydration or people having heat stroke or anything. So your water stations primarily are toward the end. The later half, we'll say. So I hit Queensboro and was like, oh man, this is bad. Because I was planning on getting at least a 4-hour race. That was my aim, to finish in 4 hours. I thought I could do it in 4 hours because of the way I had trained. I had done enough 20 plus miles. I'd never done a 26.2 on my own during training, but I'd done 20 plus and felt like, okay, I did that in about like 3 hours and change. I'll be able to do New York City in about 4 hours or less. So I kept having, and that's another thing. Don't let that get in your head. If you're running thinking I want to finish in under 4 hours, don't keep pushing yourself. You're going to wear yourself out more. Because I just kept pushing myself like, I gotta go faster. I gotta go faster. And then I ended up wearing myself out to the point where I was going slower and slower and slower the further I went. There were more and more instances of me going for short sprints as opposed to long, extended runs after a while. I saw a few injuries along my way, especially toward the end. I saw two French women, one with her arm around the other, and you could tell that the one must have pulled something in her leg. And that is a horrible, if you're a runner, that's a horrible thing to deal with. And it's also a horrible thing to see of another runner because you can only imagine the pain if you haven't experienced it yourself. And I was starting to feel very fatigued, very sore, so I was like, oh man. And then I got into Central Park and I saw another person go down, and I remember someone touching whatever part of their leg that was, and they screamed out in agony, and I was like, oh man, this is, and I had just had a Charlie horse not long before that, so that was very disconcerting to see. So, another thing that I highly encourage that I didn't do, and should have done, toward the end they start handing out like grapes, or bananas, or especially salt packets. Why? Because as you're running and sweating, you're losing all your sodium. So you need, and I mean, they're giving you like Gatorade and stuff, so that should, conceivably, that should help. But nevertheless, grab the sugar packet, take the sugar packet. I should have done that, probably would have saved my Charlie horse toward the end. The only other thing I can really say, there is a hill getting up into Central Park that is, it's at like mile 23, because I remember the principal I worked for at the school, we were talking about it one day, and she said, watch out for mile 23. I said, well, why? She said, that's where everyone says that your legs give out. And ironically, I'm like, I'm going uphill. Of course my legs would want to give out. They didn't want to give out then, but I ended up walking up that hill a lot, I think, from what I remember. The main thing that I remember is I was going along by the Plaza Hotel, out, along the outside of Central Park, and I had just seen, I think, the mile 20, or no, it wasn't a mile marker. It was telling me you only have so many meters left, so many 1,000 or 100 meters left. I think it was like thousands of meters. No, it had to have been hundreds because thousands would have been like miles. And I had just passed by the 25-mile marker a ways back, so it was saying that I had hundreds of meters left to go in the race, and I was at the finish line. And I'm going along, and all of a sudden I felt in my right calf. So I caught myself, started hopping on my left foot. Doesn't it start to grab on the left calf? So then I kind of come to I don't entirely stop because there's enough people running around go running, that someone's not going to be paying attention, slam into my back. So I kind of gingerly start walking, get as far off to the side as I can so I'm out of the main thoroughway, and kind of shake it out, get going, see my family off to the side, and then I go around the corner and I see what turns out to be the stage where they have the race police to grab the bib bandits. Anyone that they see that's not got a bib on or got the wrong bib on, whatever. Grab them and pull them off the course. Only a little ways in, I'm like, okay, I need to run again. I'm almost there. I'm so close. So I start running, and it starts to grab again. I'm like, this is not good. So I start walking again. And then finally I see the finish line. I've just seen the thing saying you've only got like so many, very few meters left. There's the finish line. I'm like, well, I'm going to make it no matter what my calves do at this point. So I ran, kept going, crossed the finish line, walked over, got my medal, and then proceeded to walk for a very, 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 very long time. And then finally, okay, here's where you get your ponchos. And they tell you, don't go off to the side and grab your own. They're going to be handing them to you. So I'm telling you now, don't go off to the side. They'll hand it to you. They don't have sleeves. They will assist you. You've just run 26 plus miles and then walked an additional mile or and a half or some ridiculous thing, shoulder to shoulder with all your fellow runners. They will assist you. They just throw it over your shoulder, slap the Velcro, off you go. So that's what I did. Then I proceeded to call my mom and say, okay, where are you people so I can find you and get back to the hotel, get stretched out because everything hurts, get in the shower, and then go have something to eat because I haven't eaten anything since I was at Staten Island when I had a bagel. Yeah. So, that's New York City. I'll do another video giving tips about marathons specifically, because I know I kind of touched on things within this video and Lake Placid about training and the mentality that goes into running a full marathon versus a half versus anything else. So I'll do a video like that. I'll also do some other videos like this because I'm bored. I can't do anything. I can't race. So it's nice to just kind of talk about different races I've done. And, one of the big things with making this channel in the first place was to do POV race footage. And can't. I've only been able to do the princess half from Disney. And some of that didn't turn out that great because I had only just gotten the camera like 2 days before we left. So I hadn't had enough time to really play around with it. So, because I have some footage from the 5K, can't put it on YouTube. I'm gonna put it up on Patreon as a little bonus video, but I can't just put it out there on YouTube because there's rain. It's dark. You can't see anything. So, and I only have like half of the race. Luckily, with the half marathon, I got the majority of the race, but the 5K, I only got half. And the 10K, I got nothing. Wore the camera and everything on my head for nothing. But, yeah. Anyway, so I'll do some more race discussion videos. I'll do some distance mentality and stuff videos as well coming up. So I thank you for watching. I'm sure this is going to be another long video, considering I started this, I thought, at like 12 or 12:30, and it's now after 1. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you have anything to comment, ask, or whatever, leave a comment below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. My Patreon link's in the description. And until next time, remember, we're in it for the long run. Peace and love.